So today's Wednesday, December 20th, 7 o'clock. We're going to call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody's getting ready for the Christmas and the holidays there, and all the kiddies coming home soon. And the first order of business is we never actually did our annual reorganization. We were going to do it at some of the previous meetings, but we didn't have a quorum. So we need to vote on the chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, and secretary position. So we'll start with the chairman. For the record, I think it's good if the chairmanship changes, just because you get new ideas and new thoughts and everything else. But is there a motion to nominate anybody as chairman for the Economic Development Committee?
I nominate John Breyer once again.
All right, Marcia has nominated myself. Is there a second? Ellen has seconded it.
You've done such a good job.
John, I mean,
It would be good if you had 2 years to do it,
yeah,
I would think.
if you don't, if you accept.
Are there any other nominations?
No.
All right, I would accept the nomination.
Oh, great.
All right, so the vote for John Breyer as chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No one. All right, the next position is vice chairman. Is there any nominations for vice chairman?
Anybody like
Is
to?
anybody interested?
Okay, I'll
Is there anybody
nominate
interested?
Pam. No, I'll nominate Pam.
Okay.
All right, Pam has got a nomination there for vice chairman. Is there a second to that nomination? I'll second it. Or actually, Todd seconded.
Second, yeah.
You interested?
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about it to say yes or no, but I guess with John as the chairman, how can I go wrong, right?
Can't.
I'll accept.
All right, so she accepts the nomination. Is there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none. All in favor of PJ?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So it's unanimous. The next position is treasurer. Our budget's $100, so it's not a very active position.
Yeah.
So does anybody wish to be treasurer?
Just a question.
Yeah.
I mean, if no one else will, I mean, absolutely, I will. Do we have an account? I mean, I know I'm the acting treasurer right now, but I know with a big budget of $100, but I would just, is it a main account or do we have like is it like a regular bank account that we need signers on it and things like that, or?
Yeah, no, it's all managed basically through the accounting ledgers.
Okay.
So Deb Thibodeau, who's the town accountant, has certain codes for accounts that
Okay.
are economic development.
Okay.
So really where I see that you'll have to, just double check some things this year coming up would be once the brochure is finalized and it goes out to the printer, just to make sure Deb will confirm that that's a legitimate expense.
And that
And
a
then,
payment's
yeah.
been issued and things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's more than enough to cover the brochure, and from what we've raised, and there's probably close to $3,500 or $4,000 for the brochure. I think the estimated expenses were like $15,000 to $2,000 to print them.
Yep.
Other than that,
Okay.
I don't see any. Now, there could be other things that come up, but it's, there's no accounting, no bank statements.
No problem.
Deb does all that.
Just wanted to double check.
All right, so is there, Todd's willing to do it. Is there a nomination for Todd?
I'll
All right,
nominate
Ellen
Tom.
has nominated him.
So,
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right, Marcia has seconded it. Is there any other nominations for treasurer? All right, seeing none, all in favor of Todd, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Secretary. Right now, we have Marcia serving as secretary. Is there anybody that wishes to be secretary? And that, basically, the duties there are the minutes. And the question came up on the agenda. Does the clerk, does the chairman, or does the treasurer, or the secretary actually do the agenda and get it posted?
We've just
The clerk
decided-
does.
The clerk does.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Todd for secretary. I'm not gonna be here to follow through on my, the next few months, and my term expires in June anyway, so, it's pretty easy, just doing the minutes. Can you have two, a secretary treasurer, or is that against the bylaws or rules?
I don't know.
Mm.
I'm going to default to Fred. He's been at a number of these meetings. Can one person serve in two officer positions?
I don't know if anybody does here, but from what the things in the past, I can,
They can.
I assume you can do it here.
So you don't want to be secretary, Marcia? I mean, the minutes have actually been pretty good.
Well, I'll continue to do it remotely if no one else will take the nomination.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it's worked. You
Okay,
catch up on the YouTube stuff and,
all right.
right? I mean, does anybody else have any issues with the way the minutes have been done? I mean, sometimes we do, no?
I don't
I
have any
usually
issues.
email them
Yeah.
to you to put, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so is there a nomination for Marcia to remain as secretary?
I nominate Marcia.
All right, Todd has made the nomination. Is there a second?
Second it.
Ellen has seconded it. Anybody else for secretary? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. The next one is the clerk. Ellen has served as the clerk. So she makes sure that our meeting schedule, which we have to come up with for 2018, is, registered with the town clerk, and then the agendas and stuff.
I'll nominate Ellen as
All right.
clerk.
Ellen has got a nomination.
Second,
Okay, Marcia has seconded it. Any discussion?
I'm okay.
Anybody else want to be clerk?
No thank
All
you.
right. Do you accept the nomination?
I'll accept it.
All right. So, all in favor of Ellen being the clerk, say
Aye.
aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. All right, so our reorganization is done.
Okay.
I'll type that up and I'll get that over to Aura. So next on the agenda is continuing the public hearing for the 5-year economic development plan. The hearing has basically now gone on, this will be the 12th month. So we've had an open, rolling public hearing. And I think, based upon the information, I think we could close it now, to be very honest. We've engaged various different departments, one-on-one going to their boards. We've had the survey, we have Central Mass Regional Planning, we've had 12 months where people can give us input. And we're actually at the point with the Economic Development Plan where CMRPC is now coming up with their initial summary draft, which their goal is to be done by the end of the year. We'll probably get it maybe the first week of January because they have to end it this year. I've been trying, starting to put things together. What my anticipation is that there'll probably be a 3 or 4 page bullet page that's actually created by our department. And then we'll attach Central Mass Regional Planning and any of the other annual plans or development plans that other boards have given us. And ours will kind of summarize it all, and then quick bullets, what department, these are the things that we have to do. So, does anybody have, well, before I close it, at the last meeting that was with the planning board, CMRPC did come up with their sort of a draft synopsis of the Dudley Economic Development Strategic Plan, sort of a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats kind of thing. The interesting thing I saw here, did anybody have a chance to see that meeting on YouTube?
I did
or
not.
All right. It basically went through a whole different series of documents, the master plan, community development plan that we already have in place, the census, open space data, leading economic indicators, incorporated our survey in there. They had discussions with local and regional businesses, Webster Dudley Business Alliance. I actually attended a meeting with their board of directors, it was last week. You know, they invited us to come in and talk about startups and incubators and things along those lines. Cuet Farm and Fromagerie, Sturbridge Coffee Roasters, Central Mass Grown, Gentex, and others. Nichols College is on there as well. Sort of the themes, West, you know, consistent with the survey to see West Main Street revitalized, Stevens Mill redeveloped. There is, as I serve as the alternate on the planning board, and the potential developers of the mill came in and with a proposal. And basically, I guess they were looking for tax credits or TIFs
Tips, yeah.
in regards to, they're supposed to be apartments. Federally subsidized or state subsidized apartments. And 93 units. They were very, very light on the commercial side of it. Any TIF, you know, or even the Mill Overlay District has a commercial component to that needs to be adhered to as well. They left that meeting understanding that Dudley in no way was going to give them a single dollar in tax credits for that project.
I'm encouraged to hear that because they have gotten tax credits for that project, I think 500,000 from the town of Dudley.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a single dime. I mean, the town spent $1 million in infrastructure for sewer, you know, upgrading the lines right through there. You know, worst case scenario, it could actually add about $2 million, that project, to the actual school budget expense.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to add $2 million worth of expenses, you're not going to get a tax break.
The feeling is if you're asking the town for tax credits, then you're asking for assistance, so we should have a say in what goes there.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Yeah. And the timing was great because with that survey question, I might actually have it. Because I don't think we've actually met since the final results, right?
I should say we didn't give them the tax credits. We gave them a letter of approval each time they approached the boards to the
here it is.
amount of 500,000.
Yeah, the survey was so timely. So we ended up getting, it was like 212 or 220 responses, something like that. Let me see if I've got the cover page. In total on the survey, 229 votes. All right, 93% of them were Dudley residents. Greatest asset, educational system, low tax rate, natural habitat. Greatest weakness, lack of local jobs, recreational opportunities, and our location. Top economic development priorities. Overwhelmingly, even more than revitalize West Main Street, was turning our dormant agricultural lands into active farms, wineries, and craft breweries. The next one was revitalize West Main Street, and then creating a restaurant district. So those are your top three. Some of the comments were pretty neat. The survey results are online, you know, under economic development. Where should we concentrate our economic development efforts? West Main Street, Schofield Ave, and Oxford Ave. Major benefit of encouraging business, more in-town jobs, more tax revenues to help improve, not maintain, but to improve municipal services. An economically strong Dudley gives residents better government and recreational opportunities. This was the question. The old Stephen Lennon's Mill by West Main Street and Schofield Ave should be, overwhelmingly, should be converted to commercial, mixed use, or low-impact industrial uses. The next one was converted into private sale condos with no tax breaks from the town. And then the next one was converted into private sale condos with tax breaks from the town. The proposal that came in, converted into low-income housing by a private developer with tax breaks from the town, had 2 votes, 1% of the votes. So, and we pointed that out to them, and we asked them, because we want that building renovated. We want it to be a vibrant part of the community. And so the planning board kind of left it, come back with a win-win, There was 8%, and actually it was almost 17% of the voters, or the people on the survey, I should say, really were interested in trying to get some senior housing aspect to that project. And that was one thing in the comments that really came up is, people that have lived in Dudley all their lives, as they get older and they find it tougher to maintain their house, there's no private condos. There's no place for them to go to stay in Dudley. And so we asked the developers to consider doing that. They called me discriminatory against people with families, basically, is what they inferred. I said, no, I'm not being discriminatory. I just think, we have a need for senior housing, and let's see it be part of a plan.
Right.
Business on the lower level.
Yeah.
How long John has, or does anybody on the committee know that, how long has it been going back and forth in regards to getting the Stevens Mill, having somebody come in and renovate it and do something? How long has this been going on for?
I don't have the firm background. Marcia, you've been on the planning board.
Yeah, I don't want to say and be wrong. It's been a number of years, and the original plans are in the planning board room, so we can get that answer. I want to say 2006, but I could be yeah.
Who owns it? Do we know?
Oh, Mr. Peterson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it George Peterson's owning that?
Yes.
Very nice guy. Yeah. And, he seemed, he was here with the company, I forget who the developer actually was on that project.
From North Carolina, I think.
It's a large company that was here with him. Mm-hmm. And basically, I think they're kind of driving the proposal. He's kind of the owner, and he wants to see something happen. Was it not Wingate? I don't have it handy. But, there seemed to be some flexibility. The owner had said he had explored a number of different options. He had explored possibly turning into an assisted living facility, which is another thing needed. The space, the layout be tough for an assisted living facility there. The commercial mixed use, ideally, he said he'd love to do something like that. The problem is you got to find the tenants. You got to find the businesses willing to come in. To convert it into the apartments, it was estimated that was going to be a $40 million investment. So, if the town does not give them a tax break, we got them on camera to agree that the basic value of each apartment would be about $430,000 based upon 93 units and the investment. So then at least you can tax the unit at $430,000 and have it work. But it's tough because it's a beautiful building. It's getting older, right? No one wants to see it abandoned. Yeah. But how do you create a win-win? And the fact that they were relying upon Tri-State, Tri-Valley there as being the commercial portion of the business already in existence. I was like, there's other buildings there, and really part of that mill overlay district is to create a commercial. So we didn't, the planning board didn't shut it down in any way. It was just, you got to do better than this. So we come back. They were talking that, best case scenario, that if they were going to actually break ground and everything else, it would be like 2020, 2021. before they even got there, because of the federal approval process and other things. So, but that was interesting.
Yeah, a while back, I thought they were gonna break ground about 2 years ago during the summer, with the projected plans of just apartments. And, I had asked at the time, could we see the value of tax revenue between apartments and owned condos? That never came to be.
Yeah. I mean, apartments, see, a lot of people don't realize, it's like 32% of all of Dudley's housing stock are rental units. And one of the issues that Dudley has as it's going through the tax rolls is we have 3-family homes paying $1,200 a year in taxes. Where the average homeowner with a single home is probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,400 to $2,700 a year in taxes. So you have 3 times the impact on government services, yet they're paying half of what the average home in Dudley's assessed at. So that's going to be one of the things in the plan is, you really got to take a look at, the multifamily housing and make sure that they're being taxed fairly.
Correct.
And the other thing that's always a challenge for Dudley is the state has a formula for what's called affordable housing. Most of our housing stock is not registered with that program. And so the goal for any town is like 10% of your housing stock should be affordable. Well, Dudley's probably in the neighborhood of 20 to 25% of our housing stock is affordable. It's just not on the record or on the rolls. And so how do you give an incentive to get those properties on the rolls? Because right now I think it shows that we only have 2 or 3% affordable housing. And so then, we actually get penalized by different state programs because according to their metrics, we're not affordable in Dudley. So those are some of the challenges. The other thing that the survey was very positive on was in-home occupations, looking to expand the definition, kind of on a case-by-case basis. The planning board will have to have kind of jurisdiction on this and the public hearing process on this as part of the plan. But when I was at the Webster Dudley Business Alliance, and we were meeting with their board, they had a guest speaker come in that really talked about, with the incubator and, if we can have Dudley become sort of a startup mentality, assisting these people that, whether they make baskets or wooden chairs or provide services that are working out of their homes already in Dudley, if we can help them expand so that they can make that leap from moving from their house to a store or to an office in Dudley one day down the road, that's dynamite. Now, they kind of told us some pros and cons about that, and one of the issues that you have when people start allowing, others to come to their house to do business is theft. So there's, it's got to be weighed out, but, the residents were very open-minded to having a good discussion about it and seeing what we can do there. Airbnb, overwhelmingly, yep. So this was, said Dudley's the home of Nichols College. Many parents visit their children. Nichols have no place to stay in Dudley. Would you support the town efforts to create Airbnb regulations? And the comment was not only to Nichols parents, but I have guests, I have family that want to come over. There's never a place for them to stay. So overwhelmingly, the people did support creating regulations that would allow people to rent rooms, houses, create bed and breakfast, throughout the town. So again, that at the end of the day, it'll be the planning board that has to own that and the public hearing process on that.
What
But
are
that
our
was encouraging.
bylaws concerning that now?
No, there are none.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Airbnb, was kind of a new thing compared to our bylaws.
Never noticed it.
Marijuana, that's definitely going to be a hot one. 37.5% of the people didn't want a single facility here. Then you had 17% wanted 2, 17% wanted 1. Do not limit was 11%, 3 was 7%, unsure 5%. So biggest comment, 2, because it would create competition. Now, it was interesting, I had just read yesterday, you know, we talked about all the farmers and growing marijuana on their fields, and everyone said, oh, it's got to be in. Well, I guess the Cannabis Control Commission is actually looking at regulations to allow traditional farmers, as long as they have fences and security and all this other stuff, to grow it in open fields. So, but this is going to be a very interesting discussion as it comes up.
I think that's where the right to farm came up to begin with.
The next one was theme. Overwhelmingly, the town does not need a theme. So the second runner-up was no opinion, and the colonial days and industrial revolution were tied at 9% of the vote each. Separating the 2 tax bills, it was interesting. After this question was actually on our survey, the state auditor came out with a report that actually recommends doing exactly this, especially for regional school districts. And so we're gonna, I talked to some of the select, I think we're gonna try to ally ourselves with Suzanne Bump's office. And basically, what it is let's just say hypothetically, you're paying $1,000 a year in taxes now. And let's just say education, for the sake of simplicity, is 50% of the budget and municipal is 50%. So basically, what you do is you take that $1,000 and now you have $500 tax bill from the town, $500 for education. They are now totally separate from each other. So the school can never reach into the town can never reach into the school. If the school needs to do an override, both are subject to Prop 2.5, but the auditor's report basically makes the regional school district a taxing authority, just like a town is. So if they need to do something, they could go to town meeting direct and get it done. If they have a surplus, it doesn't go to the town, it goes into their surplus as well. And so the other part of Suzanne Bump's recommendation was redoing the formula, because regional school districts are penalized, you know, from the state funding and stuff. So I think if we approach this and, you know, kind of hit both sides of the aisle, and, you know, I think Dudley is the town, and I know Charlton was thinking about getting out of the regional school district. They've got a commission going on now because of what happened at town meeting. They were a little upset. But this could really kind of solve everything if we could get it fixed. But at the end of the day, I was talking with Kevin Kuros, who's the state rep over in Uxbridge, and he said he thinks that if we presented it as a local option, not mandating every city and town to do it, but as a local option, that we'd probably get some support there at the State House. So, as you know, in our plan, it'll be part of the recommendations. It's probably something that the Board of Selectmen, along with the school committee, and we'll probably have to help drive that along, you know, help them with some of the political stuff. But encouraging. People are willing to invest, raise taxes, as long as it's part of an overall strategy and it produces new revenue for the town. Design guidelines, yes, people are in favor of that. 32% of the people asked taxpayers for a one-time permanent tax increase to get all programs and departments at proper funding levels. 22% said cut programs and services. So, good news is 91% of people like living in Dudley. So that was kind of the survey. Going back to the CMRPC report, the one number that I thought was worth this entire report was, you know, they've got population rates of change and all this other stuff, you know, per capita income, household income. I've always tried to figure out, how do you get an objective, unbiased starting point? Like, where is Dudley today? And one of the things that this report provided was a gross regional product. Same way the United States has a GNP number, right, gross national product. We actually have a they call it a gross regional product number for Dudley. And so we have a starting point. And it may surprise you, may not. So in earnings, Dudley produces $200.5 million. Property income, $91.6 million. Taxes on production, $14.4 million. So Dudley's gross regional product is $306.5 million. That is the total impact of economic activity in Dudley, from Dudley. Did anyone think it was going to be that high?
No?
Right? So CMRP,
Where are we on a scale? within-
they didn't give us a scale. They didn't give us a scale. But I did ask CMRPC if this is a number that they can get us annually. And I guess they're in negotiations with this company that prepared this ESMI to try to have a long-term contract with them, because that would be ideal. And that way, a year from now, we can say, okay, this year, Dudley's economic activity was 336 million. So we've increased the economic activity 10 million, or we dropped 10 million. But to have that unbiased real number, that's gold. But regionally, you know, the trend, Dudley continues up, you know, as far as jobs, income, you know, the economic indicators. But it's in line, you know, with Massachusetts. So this will go on online. What I'll probably do is I'll probably put a link to it on the economic development side of things. And that's it for the economic development plan.
John,
Yeah.
you mentioned national habitat was one of the issues that, I guess, are favorable.
Yeah, one of the greatest assets.
Okay, so within the natural habitat, did solar farms come into, was there a question?
Oh, there were questions, somewhere in the survey, there was a question on solar farms, I think. I don't even think it registered. Oh, increased solar farms, 4.59% of the people supported that. That was it. It was on the low end. It was below manufacturing, recreation and tourism, attracting office parks. The next one lower, well, there's two of that were lower. Do nothing, and residential construction and development. So those were lower than the solar farms.
John, just
Yeah.
one quick question. I think that kind of shocked me when you said 306 million for the gross regional product. Will there also be like kind of an explanation as to what that's made up of? You know, especially if there's going to be a link on the website, just so, you know, because I know, I mean, there are a number of companies that, you know, produce things, but, you know, is it something that's going back into the local economy, or is it being sent overseas, or just, I mean, really, what is made up of that number?
Yeah, I can try to get that. I don't think the initial report actually had the breakdown of
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Nichols actually does a really nice report showing their economic impact on this area.
Okay.
I don't know if any of you have ever seen it.
I've not, no.
You might even have it online.
I've seen it.
Yeah, that's very, very, very well done.
It comes out every couple of years, but they were trying to do once a year now.
Yeah.
I can see when the last one is.
It-
It's recent.
Yeah, if you could maybe get a PDF of that, and I'll throw it on the website too, because I think people would be surprised. It was like a $40 million impact, if I recall correctly, that Nichols has, you know, on the immediate area.
Oh, yeah.
See what I can do.
All right. So would anybody like to add anything else for the public hearing process of the 5-year economic development plan? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
We've discussed recreation, right, commercial, the live, work, play, everything centered around that. Everything from local regulations to state regulations, federal regulations. CMRPC, with the 10 hours that we saved, is gonna give us some recommendations to help farmers transition to different crops, what kind of federal assistance and state assistance might be available. So, all right, with no more information coming,
Okay.
I am officially closing the public hearing for the 5-year economic development plan at 7:36 PM. All right, next on the agenda, accept the minutes of September 20th, 2017. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
All right, PJ's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, PJ, Todd with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, opposed? No? Unanimous. Ah, my God, it's like brochures on the old business, brochure discussion. How are we looking?
I mean, so I have a question, you know,
Yeah.
just not knowing the history. So was any member of this group instrumental in designing that brochure, or was that all on the printer?
Barbara had kind of taken ownership about a year and a half ago, in July. The goal was to make it similar to what Charlton had done.
Okay.
Joanne was a big push behind that as well.
And I like that one
And
too.
you like the Charlton
Yeah.
one?
Program design. Okay. Well, just as I'm working with my colleague who's working on some of the layout, you know, the question comes up, like, we don't wanna step on any toes, we don't wanna insult anybody, but we kinda just like, this person is a writer, they understand how that has to lay out, and so, you know, I think I had asked you, can we just give it a go and see what they come up with, just to rewrite? I mean, we've already done some of the content,
Yeah.
and we were waiting on some survey stuff, which doesn't look like it's gonna make it in there, but, we continue to work on that, but there's the block of how we're gonna lay this out, other than the back page, which is 2/3 the map, I think it was, and then the panel of the thank yous to the people that have donated to the project, but, you know, I wanna be cognizant of not stepping on anybody's toes and, you know, insulting anybody by any means.
Do you have a copy of the one that we were endorsing, the Charlton one?
I don't, so
I
that's,
can-
I
Well,
would
they're
love
at the town hall, but I can
Okay.
get one for you. I have a couple at home,
it. Okay,
yeah.
that'd be great, that would be helpful.
My direction to,
Invent the wheel.
Yeah.
Right, I just, you know,
Sure.
if we're
Yeah,
Kinda
it'll
s-
give you a good
changing the
guideline.
design a little bit, we don't wanna
Right,
my direction
waste
to,
the hard work.
to PJ was just run with it, do it. She's got a good team, Nichols, a lot of Nichols staff has volunteered to kind of help bring this thing to closure. It's been going on way too long.
yeah, for sure.
And, I mean, if we could vote to kill the brochure, I would vote to kill it. I still think it's a waste of money.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I just don't see the value, but it was something that, you know, the committee had proceeded down the path, and let's bring it over the goal line. But the problem is, no one wants to work on it, no one wants to contribute or do content on it, and so we've got PJ and her team. I just say, just do it.
I agree.
Whatever you think, come up, just, let's see, make the magic happen. The only thing that we have to be concerned with is the bid spec, which was the size,
Yep.
and there was a quantity in that quote.
But
Right.
you've given permission for us to contact the printer,
Yep.
so we can get all of
Yep.
that, we just wanted to, again, I don't wanna, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, people worked hard on that, and I don't wanna say there's nothing, we've taken a lot out of it, but, or taken a lot from it, but I don't wanna be, hey, here's something totally different, and, but I think, you know, at least, let's see how it looks, So we're to that stage right now, so that's good.
All right. Anything else anybody want to add on the brochure, or?
It was so long ago, it's almost an obsolete idea. Terrible.
It'd be nice to have it done.
Yes.
There's some really great examples I think I shared with John after the meeting last time of towns who are doing things, you know, the online or a video montage of their town. And I've seen a couple of great examples that I'm like, wow, I want to move there, you know, and just the way you can highlight things, and it's not much more expensive than what you're spending on a brochure. It's just a different format. But it'd be a wonderful thing to get on a website that people can, you know, really look at. And
Yeah. Go ahead, Todd. You want
No, I agree completely with what PJ says, especially, you know, nowadays. I mean, everybody is, you know, they're on their iPhones, their devices, and it's quick. They want to check something out right now.
Yeah.
You know? That's, you know, but I do understand that there was, like PJ had mentioned, there are people that put some, you know, some time into it. They felt very strongly about a brochure. So, but I'm, you know, I do believe that it's at a point where we either need to, you know, just, if the people at Nichols that are on PJ's team or colleagues of PJ's that are kind enough to volunteer their time to do that, yeah, I mean, I think that we should, at this point, if anybody has donated or given a lot of time on the old version of the brochure and are not continuing to do that, we need to have folks that want to just get it done, you know, and get us something to look at so we can, you know, at least have something that we can put out, you know, if somebody is walking by and that needs to, or calls in or clicks something, send me a brochure, and, you know, we can do that. So
Yeah.
I think just like you said, let's get it done so it's not on the agenda anymore.
Seek forgiveness, not permission with this
Okay, all right.
brochure. Just run with it.
Okay.
Sick for
All right, well, the next couple of weeks will be very busy for us, so we have some time right now with downtime, so.
All right.
we'll see what we
Thank
can
you
do.
very much for doing that.
Well, I gotta thank my colleagues for helping out on their own.
Wow, that's really kind of them. It really is.
Yeah, and if it's anything like Nichols does for themselves, I mean, it'll be first class. So just let those people run with it.
That's what I say. I don't even. They're good. They're great.
There's some very creative people, well, I'm not one of them, you know, that just, they know what they're doing. All right, so the next on the agenda is we did get approval from the Board of Selectmen to proceed with the real estate partnership and the procurement and the bid process on that. So I'll be working with Greg after the first of the year. And basically what we're gonna do on the website is we're gonna put out to bid where people can, real estate companies, residential and commercial, can bid to actually be a partner with Dudley. And so if someone wants to see a list of all the current commercial properties that are available, it'll be fed through their MLS. We'll integrate that feed onto the website so that it's a real-time listing of all the commercial properties in Dudley. And likewise on the residential side. So it'll be a home run, especially on the residential side.
Absolutely.
You know, if someone hits the town website, what'll probably happen is, as you see the little ads there, it'll probably be a featured house that'll show up there, and it'll be the highest bidder on the realtor side, and it'll be their listings, but it'll be the MLS. And what we did do is, the minimum annual fee to be paid to the town of Dudley for either the residential or the commercial will be at least $500. That's what we charge on the, you know, for the ads that are there today. So the highest proposal above 500, and the one that gives the best overall value for the town. So they've got to be technologically savvy enough to integrate, you know, with our website and stuff. So that'll make the site pretty neat, I think. You know, and I know Ellen, there was a potential business looking to move into Dudley, and Ellen manually, you know, created a list of some properties and send it to them so that they could look at that, you know, what available properties were there. But it'd be nice to be able to have that real time, just go print it out, you know? And the other thing that I'm starting to research on, for the website is a matchmaking service for farmers and landowners. All right? So there's a lot of people that would like to farm land. They don't have the assets to be able to buy a farm. We have a third of our land is agriculturally protected. So how do we match those people up? And what we want to do is we want to shake out those landowners who are using the APR provisions as a tax shelter to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. Right? So if I have 100 acres and I say I'm harvesting lumber and I cut 3 cords of wood a year and show income, is that really the intent of APR, right? A lot of these fields are grown in, they're fully grown now with trees. So how do we get them to be active agricultural pieces of land again? And it's okay if people don't want to farm it, just pay your fair share of taxes. Don't take advantage of the incentives the town has. So with this matchmaking service, we'll design to do is probably have to talk to a whole bunch of landowners. We'll get them on board. Are you willing to lease out, sublease? Are you know, what kind of arrangement? Well, we'll work with the Department of Agriculture, you know, on the federal and state side, see if there's any kind of monies and startup assistance. And if there's some young couple that want to farm, give them that opportunity.
There's education available too.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
teach people how, you know, what you need to know to do
Yeah.
it.
And, you know, we've talked about some of the different crops, right, for the wineries, right, the craft breweries and stuff, but even for biofuels. I mean, there's certain types of grasses that have high sugar content that are like perfect for creating ethanol. You know, instead of hay, do this other stuff, you know?
They
So
also
it's,
grow, able to produce by, is it bacteria to do like styrofoam?
yeah.
So that's another option.
So that one there, you know, we got to figure out how to do it. We may end up doing another website and tying it into the town's website so that, what we hate to do is open the town's, the town's website gets attacked every day. You know, from, you name it. If it's got a .gov, there are hackers that just try to, and my concern is that if we do this matchmaking service, there's interaction that people have to register and stuff. And how do you do that without jeopardizing any of the town stuff? So, but that'll probably be a 2018 thing.
Is there a way to target the landowners to find out, like, you know, what really is their interest in doing anything more?
Well, that's
Is
exactly
there a
it.
way, you know, that we can send out a manual survey or have some sort of an open forum that's specific to that group of people to really find out, like, is there a want to do more with this land in terms of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there a desire? Because that will help us to know how many people we're looking for to try to match up now, or what other opportunities are, and you know, we can't force anything upon anybody, so I want to know what the desire level
No.
is among that group of people specifically.
The assessor's office can provide us with that. It's going to be one of those manual processes, and maybe at the next town meeting, we may ask for some money, depending on how the plan looks, where we do some sort of an outreach to these landowners. And say, according to our record, you have 150 acres APR, all right? Do you want to come in? Let's have coffee, let's have a conference, let's talk. You know, are you doing anything with it? That's the next step. It's going to be a manual process, and to set the board's expectation, you know, if there's 200 landowners, it might require each person on the board to contact, you know, 10
Sure.
or 20 landowners, and we just,
Absolutely. And John, just a question regarding these, the agricultural protected lands, you know, these APR landowners, as you call them. let's say they own 150 acres of land, and, you know, they're not, and their whole purpose, maybe they never were farmers, they purchased it because they knew that they could get a big tax break or whatever. Are those lands, because they're considered agriculturally protected, does that mean that you cannot build on them? Like if, let's say, you were gonna do like a residential development, a subdivision, or, you know, just, you know, A&R lots, or whatever you wanna do. Does that forbid it because it's an agriculturally protected land?
No, it doesn't forbid it. There's like 61A, right? There's 61B. But just in general, how the basic premise works is sometimes the town gets the right of first refusal upon a sale on whether or not they want to acquire the land. All right? If they don't want to acquire it, and let's just say someone's been paying $200 a year on tax, you know, on a piece of property that should have been $2,000 a year.
Yep.
And they decide that they want to make a residential development. They just have to go back a certain number of years and pay those, what that full tax bill would have been.
I see, okay.
And so, at a minimum, it defers taxes, interest-free,
Right. Yeah.
for that landowner. It's,
Right.
you know, and so if they're letting it become forested and all of a sudden they get the right offer to build 200 homes, paying 10 years or, you know, whatever the number of years is on back taxes.
Well, to me, that would
no-brainer.
be like, yeah, I would say, okay, what's their intent? And if let's say they own 150 acres of land, and they can contact a forester and say, okay, listen, I need you to give me an estimate as to, you know, what are all these trees are worth, and we take them down, convert them to lumber or whatever. But if they're only, you know, doing 3 cords of wood, you know, to save themselves several $1,000s a year, at some point, won't they say, hey, listen, you know, if Dudley's developing, you know, where are there buildable lots in Dudley right now? Do you know what I mean? I mean, where are there? I mean, you know, in regards to,
There hasn't been any really new subdivisions proposed.
you know, and is it because, you know, and it's just because if I was an owner of 150 acres of land and I could say to myself, I'm not farming, and I couldn't find somebody that I could either, and I wasn't interested in, you know, subbing out or renting, you know, renting out, leasing the land to a couple or whoever wanted to farm, or let's say you had one of the bigger breweries locally, you know, that needed some land and they wanted to, you know, start to grow some of their own stuff, you know, maybe lease out that,
Exactly.
you know, part of the land. But what I think, like, you know, what PJ had mentioned about bringing these people together and seeing what they would like to do. Would they be interested in doing something like that with the matching the farmers, or are their interests just going to be like, okay, well, you know, maybe I'll just sell it. I own 150 acres of land. You know, what's, you know, I'll sell it to some developer, you know, who's going to come in and put up, you know, 20 nice colonial style homes because Dudley's going to be growing and it's going to be, you know, doing this, that, and the other thing. So, I mean, I know there's other, you know, there's subdivision, there's a lot of building that's been going on. I mean, that's what, you know, I do it at Hometown with the commercial lending department. And you're right, there's not a ton in Dudley. There's a few, like homes that are going up, but, you know, there's other parts that, you know, there are subdivisions that are going in, and, you know, because the real estate market has been booming. How long is that going to last? Who knows? But it's just, you know, try to find out what the need is or the desire of these folks that are in these APR, you know, lots. And if, like you said, if each one of us has to make some phone calls and get a list of these folks, but I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, probably in the spring up, I'll ask someone from the Department of Agriculture to come in and actually talk about the land and what some of the criteria is.
Yeah.
I've heard that if they self-report $1,600, it qualifies them as a farm, $1,600 worth of income.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that and offset that with anything, you know, and be ahead of the game. Even if you're doing nothing, you can just make up, I made $1,600, even though you didn't make a penny,
Right.
as long as you report it. So it'll be interesting, and maybe we'll get it advertised, see about some of the folks from the Grange to come in as well, ask some of the local farmers. Because there are local farmers that do want to expand, that don't have the land. There are farms in Connecticut that have expressed an interest in coming up here, but don't have the land. Although a third of our, and then I'm hearing that the wineries in the North Fork of New York are out of land there in Long Island. So if you're gonna expand, come to Dudley.
Because it would seem that it would be a very expensive venture for a startup. I mean, I know nothing about farming, but just their equipment. You know, if you got like a young couple that wanted to start a farm, or I mean, it's just, I don't think it's, my initial guess would be it would be a significant investment, and that we'd probably be looking at, like you said, existing farming operations that are just, run out of land and are looking to expand, or larger companies that are trying to maybe, cut out the middle person and just say, hey, listen, let's grow our own, crops, and we can just, use it ourselves, and that can be part of our process. But I don't know. I mean,
Seems like somebody's gotta be willing to do the footwork, and that lies on us, and
Yeah.
we need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get past this stage of talking about it unless we
Yeah.
really start to organize,
Yeah.
some thoughts and find out what the landowners are really thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
This isn't a real new issue. I don't know if you were here, Todd. We had a meeting, and one of the fellows from the Conservation Trust was here.
I was here
Yeah.
at that meeting.
So, 2 years ago, maybe 3, the Commission of Agriculture was in Dudley. He spoke at the Dudley Library, and I was there. And how this, you said, did these people buy the land, APR land, so they would, to avoid the taxes? I don't think that's the majority.
No.
What happened was in the 60s, the state was afraid of subdivision encroachment in the rural areas, and they wanted to stop it. So that's when they instituted the APR programs to encourage people to farm and not develop their lands for housing and subdivisions. So that was in the 60s, and that's when most of these lands were acquired, and not necessarily acquired, they were probably in the families already. And we saw, as Dudley residents, old Dudley residents, we saw all these farms go by the wayside and just go fallow because of the tax advantages. And, as generations grow, the kids aren't interested in farming. So a lot of the lands we have in question are generational. And, 2 or 3 generations, you get used to that tax break without having to do anything. So what is their incentive to do anything? And that's why Mr. Wheelock said that they've been trying to do this, and it's my hope. I would love to connect the dots with, potential farmers in Dudley. I'd love to see Dudley be a breadbasket of the district, of the region. Connecting those dots is the big problem, and trying to encourage people who've had such luxury. I mean, if I came from those generations, I probably would feel the same way. So it's tricky,
Yeah,
but that's how it all started.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marcia.
Thank you.
So on the agenda was, the next thing was to set the meeting schedule for 2018. And the suggestion that came up, and it works for me, we had a tough time with our evening schedule. People's, kids and quorums and teaching and, so what if we shot for the 3rd Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Now, PJ, I know is that something you could work around?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Todd?
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe find out with Barbara as well, because I know at night, she's tied up with all the kids. I mean,
Yeah,
And
she's in
9
law
o'clock
school
was
too.
hard for her too, so maybe that
yeah,
gives her-
and the 10 and Fred, 3rd Tuesday, 10 a.m. works for you, right? So do you want to just do the third Tuesday at 10 a.m.? And then what I'll do is I'll go, or we'll have Ellen go through the calendar, and we'll do it up. What I would suggest, though, is that we not have a January meeting. Because a lot of people go down south. It's stormy, and
Okay.
I gotta start putting together this plan, and I'm not gonna have it done by that. But what I'm hoping to do is to be able to present to the board in February the actual draft of our economic development plan, because we'll have the CMRPC stuff in, and then if there are things, I'll share it. I'll just send it out by email, I'll put it up on the website, you know, PJ on the brochure, if there's anything, we'll just send it out. Well, we won't make any decision. If we need to make a decision on something, we'll just call a meeting.
Okay.
And try to at least get 4 people.
As I understand it, I can vote remotely as long as there's a quorum here,
Yep.
so, yeah.
So in February, we'll start the.
Yeah,
third
well,
Tuesday.
yeah, third Tuesday starting February.
Works.
And what I will do is, once we have the actual schedule like we did, we posted the meetings all ahead.
Yep.
We'll do
Tuesday,
the 2018
1, 2.
schedule, and then I'll send it out to everybody.
So that's the 20th.
So that, yep, so the first one will be February 20th
10 a.m.
at 10 a.m. Because now that the public hearing is over, and it may work better for everybody.
What about school vacation?
Well, we'll have to work around that one.
That's all right, that's all right. The
All
kids, the kids will be fine for an hour and a half.
All right, is there anything that anybody would like to add that we haven't discussed? All right, seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, Todd has made the motion.
Second?
Marcia has seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas, happy holidays.
Yeah.
May your
Are you gonna send us the link to that?